Hello, all of you wonderful people out in Lighting Design 2 land. While I'm away at SCP, here's a little bit of information on your project, Sweeney Todd. So here we see the ground plan. I've digitized these, or had them digitized, by Eberts. Eberts is a lovely old town, literally old town in this case, blueprint shop, just off the Walking Mall. If anyone knows where, like the George Washington Hotel is, it's literally half a block down. It's in the lobby of the office building. Right there, it says Ebert's on a big sign. It's black and blue on the ground level. They're a lovely group of people. Keep in mind, if you ever want to have anything printed there, they don't actually take AutoCAD or VectorWorks files. You always have to convert them to PDFs. They do a lovely job of scanning blueprints, though. Look how clear this is. I'm going to zoom in on this to 150%, and you can see how much definition we have. Right? Everything is very clear. So one of your first jobs this week is to actually go through and trace your ground plan, which is what I'm showing you here, and sorry, that's the wrong file, and your section, which is right here. Now, for lighting purposes, you don't need super detailed, right? You simply need the scenic units, right? Any flown units, all of the line sets that are in the show, and for lighting purposes, you do want to include these sound clouds. I would include the steps, and I would include this rail position up here, but beyond that, you really don't need a whole lot, right? You want to, of course, draw the stage house, but you don't need the little I-beams up here. You don't necessarily need this return, but you do need the lighting positions. So I'm going to zoom in on one of those now so we can take a look. Remember how I said this drawing is real clear? Notice right here, we're at 246%. This is still very clear. So you want to make sure you draw these lighting pipes. See how I'm circling that in the center of the screen with my mouse? You want to draw these, and you want these to be real clear. I would suggest drawing these in a heavyweight line. Now, each of these files is uploaded to Canvas in the Files section under Sweeney Todd. I've also included some others just for your own information. You don't necessarily need to do anything with Plate 4 or with Plate 2. They're really there so that you can see the set better, because it is a very dark show. So if we go through, we see our ground plan. So I'm going to just demonstrate this with the ground plan. So I'm using VectorWorks 2019, but this same file operation works with any VectorWorks that you may have. I would suggest that you don't do this anything earlier than VectorWorks 2017. So I happen to have this on my thumb drive. So I know where I'm going to be getting this. It's on my thumb drive that's named Woody. It's a little wooden thumb drive that I got as a gift several years ago. I always suggest you name your thumb drives. It allows you to potentially get them back, and sometimes give people a laugh. So, I have an empty VectorWorks file here. Now, first thing you might think is you can just simply import. Well, that's not actually the case here. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to set up our file. You can do this in a number of ways. You can actually do this, I'm going to cancel this out. You can actually do this if you look in the lower right hand corner of the screen. You can actually do this through the navigation pane, but I prefer to do right up here. If you go up to the very top of the file, I'm circling it with my mouse right now, and you click on this hierarchical scale, I'm going to do that, right? It's going to default to classes. That doesn't really matter for me right now. I'm going to go to design layers. Now, we know that this is set in scale 1 to 48. So, because this was a hand drafting, I need to pop back over to preview. Oh, that's for another class. I need to pop back over. I'm sorry, that was an Acrobat. I need to pop back over, and I need to quickly take a look down at the title block. And this is indeed a 1/4 inch. Now, I happen to know, just off the top of my head, that 1 to 48 is 1/4 inch. But if you don't know that, all you have to do is simply click Scale on the layer options. Just click Scale, and it'll always show you the imperial measurement, which is 1/4 inch, and that means 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. So we're going to say OK. So our design layer, which is the only layer we need in this drafting for right now, is perfect. So everything's going to be in scale when we import. Right? So now I'm going to say classes. I'm going to create a class that says GP, standing for ground plan, PDF. Right? Normally I would click this button, Edit Properties after creation, but we're not actually drawing on this layer, this class, so it doesn't actually matter. So I'm going to leave that unchecked for now. Great, we have our new class. It's right here. And then we want to double check and see what class we're in. We're still in none. So I'm going to make sure we activate class. You can do that a number of different ways. My favorite is just double clicking on it. Make sure you have the check mark right here. So now we have our very empty page. The page size doesn't really matter at this point. So we're going to go to File. We're going to Import. Now I happen to know it's a PDF. So I'm going to say Open PDF. And I'm going to click on Woody, which is my little flash drive. Now, if you look here, this is Woody, and it's Ebert scan 014248. So that's the file that I need to import. So I'm going to go back into VectorWorks, and I'm going to look for 248, which is right here. Open. And I'm going to import all pages. There happened to only be one page, but if you only wanted to import a certain page, you could just simply click there. That sounds great. Now, with this document, because it's a hand drafting, make sure you have these PDF settings unchecked. They don't work. If you were potentially drafting off of a PDF that came out of AutoCAD or potentially another VectorWorks, these are fantastic. They will only screw you up in hand drafted imports. So I'm just going to click Import now. Now, theoretically, because this was done on a large format scanner, it's probably pretty close. So what I need to do is I need to find somewhere in the building that has a dimension. Right? Now, in this particular document, we may not have one. Right? Do we see anything in this document? So the dimensioning that I see here is showing us how high this platform is, 7'4". Very interesting. So do we see anything with a dimension? Right? There is a solution if we don't. Right? So for our purposes, there's nothing with a dimension. So that's okay. So all I'm going to do is simply click off of this. I've zoomed far out, and I'm going to create another new class, right? So I'm going to go up here because this is my favorite way to do it. I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to say section PDF. Right? We now have a wonderful class named section PDF. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same operation real quick. I'm going to say import PDF, and then I'm going to hop back over here, and I'm going to double check what the section was. Right? Now I already know, because I've already searched here, the section doesn't have any dimensioning on it, which is fairly typical for a designer's section. Right? So we're just going to import this, and I'm not going to do much more than that for right now. So again, double check. And that's 014250. So when I hop back over into VectorWorks, 250, that's right there. And I'm going to say all pages, because again, it doesn't matter. These are unchecked right here. And I'm going to click import. Fantastic. Now I can just simply drag this down below, take a moment to regenerate, and that's excellent. Now we have these two done. I suggest that right now you take a moment to save. I'm going to say File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as ST for Sweeney Todd sample. You should save it by using your name instead of sample. And I'm going to upload this to my Dropbox, just simply because I enjoy Dropbox. This will take just a moment. And we're saved. So now if we were to have a crash, we wouldn't be in trouble. So I'm going to click way down here, and I'm going to do File, and I'm going to import again. So I do happen to know that other plates do have dimensioning, right? Once we find a plate that's in the same scale, dimensioning is easy. Pulling a dimension is quite easy. Simply click between the 2 points that have the dimensions. So if you see here, I'm highlighting the whole image in blue so you can see what I'm talking about. If you see this section right here, I happen to know that's 2'6". So I can actually take something like that and scale an entire VectorWorks document that way. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly import that pane, and that page is 249. So if I go into VectorWorks, same operation we've done before, File, Import, Import PDF, and 49. And I'm going to say all pages, leave everything else unchecked. It'll import real quickly for me, and I'm going to line it up with the others. Great, we're all done there. I'm going to just quickly hit Command S, or just say File, Save. Great. Now, we can use a lovely command. Now, it's actually in scaling. If you've done this before, it actually is a really, really wonderful way to scale a document, right? There's multiple different ways to do this. So there are many, many different commands up here in your menu bar, right? So there's a couple of different ways to accomplish this. My personal favorite is scale objects, right? So say I've forgotten where scale objects was, right? Say, oh no, I don't know where it is. So I'm going to say, go to help, and I'm just going to say scale. And notice how the second thing here is scale objects. Scale objects is located where that giant pointer is flashing right now, right? I'll do that one more time, but I'm going to do it manually. So if you think about it, logically it makes sense that scale is in modify because we're modifying an object. So I'm going to say modify, right? And then I'm going to click on scale objects. Now I'm going to drag this dialog box so I can actually see my work, right? So we have one issue right now. My drawing is actually too small. So I need to zoom in on something. So because that we know the bottom drawing is the one that has all of our dimensioning, I'm going to zoom in on a measurement. And then I'm going to go back to modify, scale objects, and I'm going to say scale entire drawing, right? And I'm going to do symmetric by distance. So what that allows me to do is click on this right here, and it gives me a little cursor. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to click, and that gives me 16'2". Now I'm going to move this again. We know that's 8 feet. Not 8 inches, 8 feet. 8'0". And I'm going to say OK. And it says, do I want to scale the entire drawing? The answer is yes. Now, one very important note here is you have to very much confirm that this is the correct scale. Now, be very, very careful. Notice how this says details, 1 inch equals 1 foot. They're drawn way large, right? So you need to be very careful about scale, right? I'm not going to tell you right now whether or not that was the correct scale or not. I want you to always double check that. Now, if we hop back over to Adobe Acrobat, I can tell you that plate 2 is all in the incorrect scale. Plate 2 is all in ½ inch. Plate 3 is all in ½ inch. Now, what if that also means that plate 4 is also in ½ inch? What does that mean? What that simply means is that we have to do a little bit of math. So you could open the calculator app and do this math. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my scaling, just so that you can see how to do this. Okay, so now we're to the point where they've all been imported. So, now if I did the same thing, and I zoom in on this same 8-foot piece, oh, I've gone a little too far, sorry about that. If I zoom in on the same 8-foot piece right here, all I have to do is go through and look and say, again, modify, scale objects, symmetric by distance. I'm clicking on the same dot, right? And I'm drawing the same line. And it's still saying 16'2". And instead of saying the new distance is 8 feet, right? What am I going to say the new distance is? Right? I happen to click. If I click, I can just hit escape and do it again. Right? So modify scale objects. Click on the first one. And then I'm going to indicate the new distance. So I happen to know that 16, again, we could use the calculator if you're not comfortable. 16 divided by 2 is 8, right? So we know that 8 foot is the right distance, and we know that this is twice the size. So we know that that happens to be in ½ inch scale, because ½ inch scale is exactly double quarter inch scale. Excuse me. Right, so we know that this is just only the tiniest little bit off. So I'm going to say 16 feet. And I'm going to say OK. The entire drawing is being scaled, notice right here. And yes, I want to scale the entire drawing. Notice how I only made small adjustments. Now, one very important thing to do is when you've imported things that are not in the correct scale, is you want to make a new class quickly. I'm going to call it the ident class. That's just what I call this. And I do something that's kind of obnoxious in the beginning, but it has saved my ass so many times by doing this. I'm going to say right? Say out of scale, right? And then simply all I say is text size 144. Then I'm going to select all of my text and make everything 144. You can also zoom in on this to do that, to double check, right? So again, size 144. You want to make sure it's large enough to cover the majority of the drawing, right? But it makes it very clear at a distance that this drawing in particular is out of scale. You don't need to do that to the section or the ground plan, right? Because they're in scale. So now you're going to create a new class. So I'm going to do it my favorite way. You can do it your favorite way. You can create a new class, and you're going to call it GPARCH trace. Right? So you're going to do a ground plan architecture trace, and then you want to be in that file, and then you simply are going to trace the architecture of the theater. I recommend warming up by tracing the outline of the stage house. Notice that's a hatched house, so you could either hatch or gray it. You're going to need to draw an arc here, right? In this section of the theater, you're going to have to draw an arc. Don't worry about filling in the seats. There's a wonderful tool that'll do that. I'll show you. But this house is actually fairly simple to draw. It's mostly arcs and straight lines and boxes. You don't need to draw this in 3D, simply 2D. Shouldn't take you very long at all. Then, I want you to concentrate on very detailed drawing the set and tracing it exactly as it is. Don't worry about these pencil marks and things here. Just worry about the things that are clearly drawn. You're going to do the same thing by creating a new class that says Section Architecture Trace, and you're going to trace that. Then you can actually go through and either gray or turn off the original PDFs. I would not delete them. Then, after you've done all of those things, it's time to get to work. So, creating a lighting key, remember how to do that. If not, I'm happy to show you or tell you. Creating a lighting key for your project, I want you to create a light plot for this event. So, going back to what we did in Lighting Design 1, I want you to create a lighting key for the environment and then translate those into space. Don't worry about getting the specific instrument size, so like a source for 26, 36, 50, 70, 90, 14, 5, 10. Don't worry about that. I really want to know where you're going to place the lights. I don't really care at this moment what beam size the lights are. So, that's a nice little primer on how to do this and how to import hand draftings. I used to do this for a living for the better part of a year when I was right out of undergrad, and it does pay pretty well. So it's a wonderful skill to have. And there are still many scenic designers that still do this. I'm going to zoom in on the title block just to prove it to you. This is a Union USA 829, the Broadway Scenic Designers Union, and this was done in 2012, and he still drafts by hand. So, I'm going to leave you with that. If you have any questions at all, you can feel free to text me. My cell phone number is 770-825-3505, or you can email me at my university address, which is acarson@su.edu. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you enjoy your week, and I can't wait to see what you've done when I get back. Have a lovely time.